Jank. It's a term that's used quite commonly when talking about video games. Its definition is of extremely poor or unreliable quality. And I think that video game jank can be split into two distinct categories. Category 1, fun. This is when a game's jankiness is widely used by players just to make the game more fun. For example, using it to perform actions in a game that the developer didn't intend to be possible. I think a game that shows off fun jank at its best is the classic GameCube game Super Smash Bros. Melee. I'm not going to get into all the exploits that Melee players commonly use, since that's not what this video is about, but if you do want to learn more, then just watch any Awesome Sauce video. The second category is fucking annoying. Its name alone will tell you what I think about this type of jank. It's annoying. A few good examples would be Sonic 06, Cyberpunk, Big Rigs, or the subject of today's video. Fredbear's Family Diner is not the jankiest game I have ever played. Sorry for the clickbait. But it is a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game developed by Costin Games that was released only 3 weeks ago. It already has a sequel in development which, despite the things I'm going to say about this game, I'm definitely going to play. The game has the regular Five Nights at Freddy's structure of 5 main nights and then a secret 6th. But however, to my knowledge, it doesn't contain a custom night. Anyway, I'm just going to go night by night and talk about what I liked and disliked about this game. When you first open the game, you're met with a pretty well done title screen with this game's Fredbear on the right side. The models in this game aren't bad, considering that this is one of Costin's first games, especially Foxy. I think that he looks the best from what we see of him in the game. However, I think these models could be improved a lot with just some better textures to make them look more realistic. I think that would add a lot to their designs, and it's maybe something Costin could do in the second game. After clicking New Game, we're shown a black screen with some text boxes. I'm sure these sentences have some kind of lore significance, but I have no evidence as to who could be saying them or what they could mean. I'm guessing that it's someone talking to the player and warning them of the horrors that lay inside Fredbear's, but what's the one swing that would supposedly kill the player? Anyway, before getting into the actual gameplay for every night, the player must complete an Atari-style minigame where the player controls this girl. On night 1, we're inside Fredbear's, and walk to the right of this insanely long restaurant. The player keeps going for about 30 seconds, letting their mind wander a little bit, until BANG! Purple Guy suddenly appears and starts chasing them. They need to run back to the left as fast as possible to escape him, which is kinda difficult because he's faster than the player, and you press space to run, which took me a little while to figure out, but anyway. Once you get all the way back to the left of the restaurant, you take refuge in the parts and service room and ascend to the actual night's gameplay. Night 1 isn't really that interesting, which is very normal for FNAF games. I didn't expect much going into it. There is some jank with this game's camera, which was frustrating at first, but I got the hang of it by the time I got to the later nights. Also, one extremely minor nitpick I have is the fact that the only explanation as to what the player needs to do to get rid of the animatronics is a text box in the corner telling it to use the vent lights when needed. This is an issue I have with a lot of FNAF fan games, and I definitely recognise that it is a little weird that I get annoyed by it, but I think that when a game that the player is meant to be immersed in gives them valuable information through a text box on the screen, it breaks the immersion completely. It's such a simple thing to fix. The developer could literally just put it on a post-it note on the desk or in a little booklet or something if they don't want to add a phone guy. I love in-universe tutorials. They don't feel like a developer talking to the player, but like someone leaving a message for you to keep you safe. It's a simple thing to do that I think has a big impact on the game, and again, I hope we see it in the sequel. Night 2 opens with another minigame, where the player is in the parts and service room that they were in at the end of the last minigame. They have to walk across the mile-long diner and go outside, then walk to the left towards this grass path. And herein lies the beginning of this game's jank that makes you have to restart the game. The first 2 times I tried to play Night 2, I got stuck on the right side of the frame and couldn't move. Unfortunately I don't have any footage of these attempts, so you just have to take my word for it, but but this did annoy me quite a bit because I had to close the game, reopen it, walk through the mile-long diner, and then I could finally get to the next section of this minigame: platforming. I love platformers, and the platforming in this game is pretty well done and feels kinda good to control. I just have two little criticisms. One, the platforming sections are controlled with the arrow keys when the rest are WASD in space. Huge nitpick, I know. And two, there should be more checkpoints. Going from the beginning every time I died was very tedious, and I just wanted to get to the night section. And speaking of the night section, I didn't really give it much of an explanation, so that's what I'm going to do now. It takes place in a very FNAF 2-esque office, with two vents that have no doors and a hallway that does have a door, which will need to be closed whenever an animatronic is visible through it. The office doesn't look bad. I don't have much to say about it, not a lot going on. No Fredbear nose to boot, which needs to be fixed in the sequel. But anyway, when the player opens the camera menu, they're met with a restaurant map that is similar to the FNAF 2 location, which is probably something that matters to the lore. I do have a couple issues with these cameras. For one, the vent cameras are ripped straight from FNAF 2, which normally I wouldn't have an issue with if it wasn't obvious that Costin is capable of modelling environments, or at least finding models to use for them. And another issue is that the cameras are, as far as I could tell, completely useless. There's no requirement to track the animatronics through the diner, and nothing to wind up or watch to make sure that you have to use them. Also, one of the cameras is, I'm pretty sure, completely blank for the whole night, no matter what animatronics are in there. In fact, the only cameras I saw change were the prize corner, the vents, one of the show stages, and this one, where occasionally you can barely make out an animatronic in the darkness. This is something that definitely should be fixed in the sequel if there is a camera system. The pre-Night 3 minigame is probably the peak of this game's jank. It starts with walking down this path and collecting a cupcake in the corner, then having to get into just the right position here for the camera to move. Then the player must continue walking until they get to this platforming segment, where they need to collect all the cupcakes, which I enjoyed. I have no complaints about this part. However, after this, the player is sent to this glitched area where the platforms are barely visible because of the background. I don't know if this was on purpose or not, but it made this section pretty annoying. And then we get to the second piece of jank that makes you have to restart the game. I attempted this section a total of 13 times, and every single time I played this bullshit minigame, I got stuck here and couldn't do anything, which means I had to go into the game's save file and edit it to say I was on night 4, which I know that's cheating and it's wrong, but I didn't have any other option. Therefore, I can't say anything about this game's night 3, so I guess we're going to be moving on. When I played this night's minigame, I immediately experienced some jank that makes you have to restart the game. I pressed continue and tried moving to the right of the frame, and got stuck off screen again. But anyway, it worked on my second try. The player needs to walk to the left of the frame where they get to the crying child's house, where you have to find him crying and give him a cake. That's all for this minigame. This game's night obviously isn't any more interesting than the rest of them, apart from being more difficult. But when I was playing this night, something I did by accident made me realise how jank the cameras actually are in this game. At one point in the night, I had both Fredbear and Spring Bonnie stood in my doorway ready to attack. I moved my cursor down to press the door button, but I accidentally went too far and flipped with the cameras. Then I realised that even though Fredbear and Spring Bonnie were both at my door, they were also stood on the show stage, which is actually double jank, because not only were they in two places at once, but I didn't get jump scared when flipping up the cameras, even though I did get jump scared after a little while, so I'm going to take that jank point off. This night's minigame is a short one, and thankfully isn't janky at all. The minigame opens at the entrance of Fredbear's family diner, and the player once again is required to walk across the entire length of this mile-long restaurant until they reach the show stage, where they see the crying child with their head crushed between the jaws of Fredbear. That's all. Nothing else to do in this minigame. It was on this night that I found possibly the worst piece of jank that this game contains. I was playing night 5 until I got into this situation. every single animatronic was ready to attack apart from Balloon Boy, who was already in my office. And since he was in my office, I wasn't able to shut the door to get rid of the animatronics there, or turn on the right vent light to deter Chica. I thought that my attempt was over, and I couldn't do anything without dying. So I sat in the office and waited to be jump scared until... nothing. I didn't get jump scared. I just waited for 6 AM to arrive, which it did. Honestly, I was shocked that I hadn't found this out earlier into my playthrough. I guess I just assumed that if I just sat there while they were ready to attack, I would die. But you don't die. This has to be fixed in the sequel. But anyway, once the player reaches the end of Night 5, a cutscene plays showing the spirit of the crying child returning to the girl that the player has been controlling for the whole game and calling her a good friend and telling her to find happiness again. After this, the player unlocks the first star on the menu. It took me about 5 attempts to get past Night 6's pre-night minigame, but that's just a skill issue, since this minigame is just another one where the player runs away from Purple Guy until they get into the back room. Except this time, he follows you in, and no matter what you do, he does get to you, and once he does, you're put into the office for the 6th and final time since this game doesn't have a custom night. This night is just like the rest of them, apart from the fact you can't win by doing nothing anymore. Foxy will actually attack you. I don't know whether this actually is Foxy's first night being active, although I'm pretty sure it is, since he had never attacked me until Night 6, so either I'm right, or Foxy is just way too passive until Night 6. And after completing this night, you're rewarded with a 2nd star on the menu screen. Fredbear's Family Diner is a game that I think is good when it works. It can be described very well by the definition of the word janky, of extremely poor or unreliable quality. But the game isn't poor, it's unreliable, yet enjoyable. I hope that if Costin sees this video, he can take it in jest, as I think that if this game's sequel gets a little bit more time in the oven and a little more polishing, it can be very good. I will definitely be making a video on it when it comes out. But for now, I'll be following the game on GameJolt and checking out all the cool teaser images he's been posting like this one. I'll link the game in the description. Goodbye.